evening ahead of us. So if you can't tell from the vibrations in the room, I don't know, you must be asleep. Anyway, I want to thank everybody for coming. I want to, thank goodness that the weather is cooperating. We didn't have to come out in the puddles, right? And I just want to say a couple of things before we get started with our program. So the restrooms are out there to the left. And once we get started at 7 o'clock, the library closes and we are captive inside this room. If you came in from the front, at the end, I will be happy to escort you back out so that I can make sure the doors are locked and all of that, all right? I also always invite people to come in and look at the great artwork. Every month we have a different display of artwork. This is David Finzer. He's a Dover High School graduate who just a couple of years ago started saying, hey, how about if I do something creative? And this is what he comes up with. And almost always, and today is always, these paintings are for sale. So if you're interested, you tell the people at the front desk, and they come. The cards are on the back, but you can tell them and they'll come and look and see and make the arrangements for that if you are interested in something that's all on the wall. And I always tell people, you don't have to come in and check out a book to check out this wall. Because we have that back door, you just sneak in and you look and you enjoy. And then if you feel good about this space, which is peaceful and happy, then you can go out and check out a book. There are always lots of things to do here at the library. So I wanted to say, we always have our footnotes. This is the newsletter. It lists all of the things that are coming up in the month of June and in July. Well, July is not out yet, but I think the biggest thing coming in July is Linda Castillo. She's the writer who writes murder mysteries set in Amish country. And she loves us, and we love her. So her book comes out on one day, and the next day she's at our library talking about her book. That's July 12th. So you'll want to make sure you come for that program. There are other things, but I don't want to take time from tonight's program to say it. You get online. You come to the library, you get a book, footnotes, and you can see for yourself all kinds of things. One big thing that I am really guilty of, what is it? Telephones off. Silence those phones. We don't want our, we don't want our program to be interrupted. I will say now, I'll just say, and you'll see why I feel this way. We have been working on, how many people were at the farmer's market last night? Awesome program. Thank you, Rodney. Well, awesome program. And so we've been working on these things, these programs for a couple of weeks now, a couple of months actually, making sure that we have a good program to give to you. And I cannot tell you what a pleasure, what a privilege it's been for me to work with the people, Mark McKenzie from the Farmers Market and Colby Byram from this group and this lovely group of people up here on the stage. Top notch, just a real joy to work with people to get this to come together. So I'm going to leave the microphone to Colby Byram. He's going to be your MC and he's going to get the program rolling, and from there, just enjoy yourselves and learn. It's the greatest. All right.
All right, thank you, Cheryl. Appreciate that. I'd like to welcome everyone here tonight, and probably don't know what to expect. A lot of you are thinking that, well, it's going to be a lot about Tin Town. We'll have some about Tin Town, but not a lot. Some of you think Juneteenth. We'll have a lot about Juneteenth. There'll be maybe touching on Juneteenth, but not a lot. The focal point of this program is First Baptist Church and the church history and how the history has, impacted the community and how the community has impacted the church. And this most I get to talk, because when you get around these elder people, they don't let you say very much. All right. Participating, heading up the program will be James Mills. On the far, well, let me go with the ladies first. Sister Charlene Hunter. So she's had 3 children to graduate from Dover High School. One son played professional football. Catherine Kelker, she of the Kelker clan, so Ray clan, so she got it on both ends. So. And Colonel Rex Ray, he couldn't wait to retire so he could get back to the community, and he's definitely making his presence known. So, and then again, I started with James Mills. So, without much ado, we'll go ahead and get started. And hopefully, at the end, if you have any questions, there'll be time to answer questions. That I'm sure there's an answer up here somewhere, no matter what the question is. You can just pass it around, but the focal point is church, the center of family life, and that's one of the key things at First Baptist. It's all about the family, you know, and there's so much interreaction over the years that our history goes back 108 years, so there's a bunch of history there.
Okay, I'll get started. Again, my name is Rex Ray. I'm one of the Ray children that was born to Buford and Beatrice Ray. Our family history goes back 100 years this year, when our parents came to Dover from Florida and Alabama, looking for a better life. This is my sister Catherine here. She married to a Kelker, and I have a sister in the audience also, Diana Lynn Ray Jones. So we're well represented here. This first picture we're looking at is the old AME Zion Church, which is right across the street. Sister Charlene, that is AME Zion Church there. And it's right across the street from our family home, the Ray family home, right on the corner of Broad and 4th Street. Just about 85 yards from Denoffel's. It's a good foot race. You know, because we used to race up and down that street. And none of us ever beat Larry Denoffel. But that's the AME Design Church. And you can see they had quite a congregation at that time. None of our churches are as big now as they were years ago. But this church, and then of course our church, First Baptist in Tin Town, they were all started about the same time. Our church was started in 1917, back during World War I. And a lot of folks were moving from, there's a migration of blacks from the south to the north about that time. And folks could come from the south and they would land better jobs and so forth because they earned more money up in the north. And so we brought our religion with us and started churches. So with that, would anybody else like to make a comment about the AME Zion Church? How about you? Anybody? No. All right, okay. All right, this is First Baptist Church from back in the day here. Okay. And as I mentioned, 1917 is when our church got started. And we initially started our church down on West 3rd Street at the old B&O, I guess it was like a little shanty there. What was it? No, it wasn't the Reverend, no. But then it moved over to Depot Street, which is down over the hill behind Capazella's and Denoffel's. And I mentioned Capazella's, and we have Junior Capazella here with us tonight. You know, so he's very familiar with that down over the hill there, and we'll talk about that a little bit later as well, about down the hill and some of the things that happen down there. Can everybody hear me okay? Yes. All right, good. All right, old First Baptist Church here, and the next picture here we're looking at is the mortgage burning. We initially moved from West 3rd over to Depot Street, and then we actually bought property over in Tin Town and dug out the basement there. And we were in the basement there from 1926 to 1936, almost 20 years we were there. But the mortgage burning was done in 1941 for that particular building. That work that was done to create First Baptist Church was done by pick and shovel. And so it was not an easy task, but our forefathers were determined to, you know, have our own church, you know, and have our family church. And it was a center of influence for all of our families at that time. Now, in 1997, we put the new front on First Baptist Church. And that was a unity project. That summer, there were a number of churches that were being burned in the South. They were set on fire. Black churches were being burned in the South. And the church at Berlin wanted to go south to do something to help. Instead, they decided to do something here in Tuscarawas County. So they contacted us, and they helped us put a new front on First Baptist Church. And I think that project was completed in '99, if I'm not mistaken. Reverend Christopher Lowry was our pastor, and Reverend Tim Troyer was the pastor out the Berlin Church. So that's where we go. We finished the project in 1999. And this is what the new church looks like now, today, First Baptist Church. And with the help of our friends in the Amish community, we have a really nice looking church there and a nice facility. Anybody? Comments? I'm hogging the microphone here. All right. Yeah, and like I said, First Baptist Church was a big part of our community life. Here you see the Eastern Stars, which was started some years ago. And I don't recognize any of the folks in there, but go ahead.
I can't see him.
Okay, well, I'll go on. But some of those folks,
We got a
yes.
couple people.
Charlotte, my mom was in that picture. Yeah.
Okay,
Go
all right,
back.
so
Does it
Sister
go back?
Hunter is in this picture here.
Did it go back?
Okay.
Go back.
And the last picture.
Yeah, go back.
Now then, who?
Over to the right, beside seeing.
Yeah. And it looks like Vance and Evelyn, and my sister Evelyn is in there.
Yeah, I can see that now, yeah.
Can you? Okay.
Vance and Evelyn, I think maybe is that Roscoe Avery in there also?
Okay.
My Aunt Doris Jones.
Okay.
Yeah.
Evangelize.
And Barbara Jean Hamilton.
Sophie
is there.
Walker is on that right there, Sophie Walker.
Afterwards, you should get those names from people for history.
All right, very good, thank you. And then the J.B. Easley Lodge was also formed. When you think in terms of some of these social organizations that we formed, there was always an emphasis on getting organized and educating ourselves to move forward. That is, as a community, as a black community in this community. And that still exists today, for that matter, because we continue to focus on education and socialization and just moving forward in a positive way. This was another social event that was taken there, and in this particular shooting here, my parents are in there, Beatrice Ray and Buford Ray, and I see Sister Shirley Mills there, Sister Evelyn Mills, and of course Annie Carter, Reverend and Mrs. Larsoul are in there. My sister Darlene, Kobe's mother, is in there. Mr. Major Houston is in there. Mr. Major Houston's daughter would have been here tonight, but she's in the hospital right now. But Major Houston was a big advocate for being involved with the community, and also he worked for the Snyder Company for many, many years and worked with Charlie Deeds. Most of you probably know Charlie Deeds. And so he helped the community a whole lot with regard to us affecting.
Third one over. Third one, James.
What was that?
James Mills is up front, third one over.
Okay, all right, so James is over here, the third one over. Yeah, all right.
He was also
Right there.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah, you were also in this one also, the James B. Easley Lodge. Yeah, and Brother James knew all of those folks, so he still got the living history here. the prom at Mr. Leakey's house. Mr. Leakey was Edmund Leakey Finley. Some of you probably knew George Finley. Okay, he graduated with me in 1960. His father was known as the jukebox man, because he would go around and he would take the coins out of the jukeboxes for the juke joints and so forth. Yeah, and Mr. Leakey would have all the graduates over at his house for a gathering. Is that something you'd like to talk about, Sister Sherrell?
For every graduation, every graduation, he would have a party at his house. And we would dress up in our formals, and he would serve us dinner. And his wife was always there helping us along with different stuff. And it was really an evening that we all looked forward to, because we couldn't do parties ourselves. But he always had a really nice party for us. And then,
Anything you'd like to add?
No, because I
Well, Catherine's just a little bit younger than Charlene. And I'm much younger than her. I have to be careful when I say, because she practically raised me. You know, she was like a second mom. She still thinks she's mom. Of course, music was a crucial part of the church. It was a big player in getting folks in the spirit, you know, before church service and the minister started to speak. In fact, I can recall walking across the bridge to church before church started, and before we had air conditioning, you know, the windows were open, and you could hear the choir singing as you walked across the bridge. You know, so you get your spirit lifted walking across the bridge. Yeah, I mean, that was just a few years ago.
the bridge where we lived across town. The children, as they called it, at our house, it was 11 children there, some small. And the kids would meet there. My dad would tell us how to hold our hands, how to walk. And that bridge at that time just had chains across it. Now, you could see the water. We could have fallen in that river. My dad said, you hold your hand, you look to the front, not the left or the right, and you keep straight across that bridge. Don't play on it. That's what you did. Even the neighborhood, none of the elderly people or anything that I know fell off that water in the bridge.
also, every Sunday, me and Colby's mother, Darlene, we would save some of our Sunday school money that we were supposed to put in church. We would save a quarter anyway and walk up to the Goshen Dairy every Sunday and get us an ice cream cone. And when we came back, and we would hide in the furnace room until the deacons heard us down there. And we had to go upstairs to listen to the Reverend after that.
Okay, well, the choir here was singing, we're making reference to singing Sherrell. Now, some of you probably know some of the Sherrells, Willie Sherrell, Reverend Willie Sherrell, and Sister Jackie's husband, Bob Sherrell, was a minister as well. And in fact, all the Sherrells were good singers, you know, very, very good singers. And she was a pianist. She started playing the piano for the church.
My cousin, she started playing the piano for the church when she was about 9 years old. She said that she was taking music lessons from a Mrs. McFadden that did music lessons, taught the children in Dover. And she said that she didn't want to learn the notes and playing like she did. She played by ear. If she heard a rhythm, she played it. So she said she stopped taking music lessons. So Dad worked at the Massillon Republic Steel Job. And she would listen to music, you know, on the radio and all, and pick it up by ear. And she said, the new music, the swings, you know. And said her dad came home one day and she's in there and said, young lady, I understand you're not going. No, Dad, I didn't waste the money. He said, what'd you do with it? She said, I put it in my piggy bank. So she said that saved her. And she had been playing the piano for 77 years in our church. She and her husband did a lot of musical around Tuscarawas County, weddings, funerals, and so forth. And she's in the nursing home now. And what I wanted to say, that Sister Evelyn Mills is in a nursing home, but it was kind of controversy about the age or who's the oldest member there. I think Sister Mills and I are the oldest members there now. And also with Sister Sherrell, she remembered that with her mother passed when she was young though. She told her something, she didn't want to play that with dogs. She said, I'm your mother and you're playing this piano. And she played it for 77 years.
Yeah.
Catherine and Evelyn are not the oldest members. I'm 95. Every morning when I wake up, I thank the good Lord that I can get up and I can still take my own shower. I don't have to have anybody waiting on me. And the Lord is really blessing me. The only problem I have is walking. I get unbalanced. And so I'm just thankful to be here. And it's good seeing everybody here.
Well, I'll say this, if you come to First Baptist, you will never experience a dull moment. There's always a lot of discussion going on and so forth. And having said that, Brother Mills says he would like to say something.
Sister Hunter said she was the oldest. I'm the oldest.
How old is he?
95.
He's 95.
I'll be 93 July the 20th. I just think you all are here to do, walk in, speak, what you can. And I just thank God each day that we're able to be in our own homes. Yeah. We have
Amen.
people, so I thank God for that.
Oh, God, yeah. Whoa.
Thank you all for your commentary. Before I get into the next one, I would like to say I'm starting to feel like peanut butter. This is not unusual. I'm one of the younger 5 in the Ray family. You know, there was my one brother passed away 6 weeks before I was born, and left a gap of 4 between the older 5 and the younger 5. And so I'm the second oldest of the younger 5. And so, and I said, you know, she practically raised me, and of course Kobe's mother She was the oldest, and the rule in our family was if mom and dad wasn't home, the oldest person was in charge. So that left me and my other younger brothers and sisters, we were followers. And then after I became a colonel, the issue came up as to whether or not I should have any clout. I said, nothing's changed. You are still the youngest brother in the family. So, I mean, and I will say this, I'm standing on their shoulders. Right here. I'm proud of all of them, because all us younger ones in the church looked up to all of these folks. Yeah, and we've all done well as a result of that. Education was a big focus in all of our lives and so forth. And our parents saw to it that we all went to school and made sure that we all graduated from school. The question was not if you were going to graduate, it was when do you graduate? Yes. And you better have the right answer. That's kind of the way it was. But anyway, I'm proud to be up here with all of them. I'm 10 years younger than Catherine, and a few more years younger than Charlene, and a few more than Brother James here. In fact, I have a picture with Brother James back when we were smaller, and my brother Charles, I think, took the picture, who's our oldest brother. And there was 5 of us boys there together, and I think you must have been about 18 or 19 years old, or maybe 20 at that point. But it goes way, way back. So, yeah, a lot of history there. Well, let's move on and looking at the Kings of Harmony here. Well, Brother Bud's older brother, Raymond, is right in the front there, in the center. Skin, we called him Skin. And then there are 3 Sherrells in there. We talked about Cini Sherrell and Bob Sherrell. Well, Cini and Willie had their own music ministry, and Reverend Bob Sherrell was our associate pastor at our church. His sister Jackie's husband, who's not here with us tonight. And then Joe Sherrell was their younger brother. He was a minister. And we're going to talk about some sports after a bit, but and then Joe Lowry is in there as well, and I see some of the Lowrys are here tonight. So and his wife is here, yes. And in fact, his wife is brother James is a sister. So we got a lot of family here with us tonight. So, but anyhow, I'll say this, and then we'll kind of get back to the music part. But all of those guys actually played ball for the Dover Dukes years ago. And Jenny, you remember the Dover Dukes? Yeah. And that was the ball team that we had that played down over the hill. Softball, fast-paced softball. In fact, here are the Dover Dukes here. Yeah, and a number of those folks played for the Dover Dukes. I'm in that picture. If you look in the upper right-hand corner, you'll see a half a face there. That's me. I was the youngest guy on the team. Yeah, and I was 18 years old at that time. Some of those guys, well, Skin would have been in his, about 34, maybe 35 at that time. And he was one of the best ball players that I ever played ball with. And then Rosie Sherrell, who was in the picture you saw back with the quartet, he was the pitcher. And then Joe Lowry's in there, Alex Webster, Robert Morton, Colby's dad, Orly's Byron, Matt Richards is in there, Dean Richards' dad, Scott. Where's Matt? Dean. Nat is right in the middle. You see the guy with the tobacco chaw with his jaw stuck up? That's Colby's dad. Nat is right between him and Joe Lowry. Yeah. Okay. And then Charlie Davis. Some of you probably remember Charlie Davis? Yeah, he's on the far left side there. Yeah, and then James Crooks. The Crookses was in there. And then Alex Webster. And let me see. Harry Morrow. I don't know, Harry Morrow was the gas guy that used to go around the gas meters and stuff. Harry Morrow. What's that? You want to say anything about it? No. I have to get permission from you guys. But anyway, that's what our community was all about. And let me say this though about the Dover Dukes here. Now it was predominantly made up predominantly of black ball players, but they weren't all black ball players that played for us. We had guys like Lefty DeRicci. He used to be a deputy sheriff here. He'd come down there and play. Larry D'Onofrio would play with us sometime. Jack Bates was a good pitcher. He was one of the best pitchers that some of the Petrellas did. Al and Tom Battaglio would come down and play with us, and I thought I made the major leagues playing. Well, I did. I had made the major league playing with these guys. So those guys were good ball players. I really learned how to play ball with them. At 18 years of age, I mean, it was really a privilege to go out there and be able to play with them and watch those guys play. And usually the ball playing took place after church on Sundays, our biggest day. We usually had a double header. And going down over that hill, down the hill, and Junie can relate to this, you know, because Larry and Awful didn't play with us much because he would have to get ready for his restaurant, for his pizza to sell. But going down that 5th Street between Campozella's and Awful's was like walking into a theater. Because at the time, there was about 23 families down in that area, down there around that ball diamond. Now it's the Warriors shops are down there. So there was about 23 families there, and there were houses lined up along third base and first base. And so we had residential seating. Really, you could watch the ball team from your seat there. Front porch, yeah, absolutely. And living down over that hill there, it was predominantly black, but there were like 4 white families there also. They would come out and watch the ball games, sit on their porch and watch the games. And in one particular situation, behind left field, there was an old-fashioned barn. I think the Toomeys had that barn down there when they were building carriages. So before they got into the auto industry. And there were 6 families in there. 6 were black and 1 was white. And I'll tell you, when I was a kid, I used to wonder, why would people want to live in a barn? Well, that's what they had available to them. Yeah, they didn't have access to anything else. There was also a chicken coop down there. I played in front of the chicken coop. If guys hit the ball in the chicken coop, it was a home run. But there was also a gentleman who lived in that chicken coop. And I wondered, why would anybody want to live in a chicken coop? Well, that's what he had available to him. Yeah, you know, he wasn't going to go up north Worcester, find a place to live. Yeah, pardon? Oh, yeah, right here.
What I want to say, they always talked about down the hill, the ball field. But where the first ball field was over on Reeves ground. See where Reeves Mill was? Where that one road that goes up to Union there, that not Union. Yeah, where you meet, you know, where the office, the Reeves, okay. Well, it was Reeves Mill, but it was Greer Mill back in there. Well, all that was empty from Reeves Mill so far, because from a certain point in that field down to our church was where they emptied all their, if I can say it right, ore and all, there was lumps of, you know, and that was the first ball field because the workers that worked there lived in that area and they played ball there on Sundays. The reason why I know that is because I live in a home there on Regent Street that was built in 1929 and still standing. It was well built. Most of the homes in Tencow were built by Reeves Mill. Some of them were built by individuals. Well, my house was built by individuals. The house I'm living in is Charlie Kelker Sr.'s house. That's the one. I married Eugene Kelker. That was his grandfather. John Kelker, the electrician. You know him. He worked at Reeves. And they would go out there on Sundays and all and play ball in that field. I remember them telling me about that. So the first ball field was over there on Reeves property.
Thank you. Before I get off the sports side of it, I want to mention, she said that was Mr. Charlie Kelker's house. They called him Pawpaw. And he was the father of Doc and Spider Kelker.
Yeah.
twins that played for Dover back in the 30s. In fact, Doc was on the team, Doc was on the team that was undefeated state champion. Yeah. So this goes back. And not only did we have folks that, like Doc and Spider Kelker come along, but we had people that continue to come along. In fact, Sister Charlene's son, Monty, played for the Dallas Cowboys. Yeah, and you all heard of John Madden, the guy. Yeah, he called Monty the big game hunter because he played a big linebacker for the Cowboys. You want to say anything about that?
I went to his graduation. He went to Salem College in West Virginia, and the president of the college asked me if I missed any of Monty's games, and I said no. I came to every game because my husband drove, and we would just go down there and watch him play. Sometimes we had to sit up on a hill like place to see the field. And after that, when he was picked up by the Cowboys, he made this spectacular catch and won the game for him. And after that, he came in, excuse me, and the president of Salem College sent me a letter and told me that he was having this dinner for Monty, and he wanted me to be there. So I went, and he got up and he said, we got the best cheerleader in the audience, and this is my S for Salem. And after that, he gave me a bouquet of flowers, and and at the meantime, Buddy White was one of Monty's buddies there at the college, and they were good buddies. And it was really a wonderful feeling to go there, and all these people were there honoring my son.
I wanted to say, my son, Richard Kelker, they called him Bubba, he attended Akron University and played football. And my son, Dwayne J., was attending college there first. And he walked on 1 year, practiced with them, and he also played on the team up there 1 year. So I was glad to football season was over traveling up that road. And they would say, well, Mom, why are you taking all that? Mom, get Mom's bag. I said, yes. Because you remember, I was older, I was cold. So I took everything I thought I would have to have.
Let me kind of wrap up this kind of sports thing here and point out some other things, if you will. Sister Charlene's great nephew, little Percy, you know who he is, well, that's her great nephew, played for the Cleveland Indians before they became the Guardians. You know, yeah. And of course, C. Grant was from New Philly. He played on the Ohio State championship team, made that final tackle against the Hurricanes. So all these folks grew up in First Baptist Church. First Baptist Church. And most of them probably cut their teeth down the hill playing ball, because we all played ball down the hill. Sandlot ball, so forth. And see people down there, well, There was gambling, drinking, lots of cars, and people eating a lot of Miss Judy's barbecue. And Judy's got his own story about Miss Judy's barbecue, but she was known for her barbecue. And she would start cooking barbecue on Fridays for just get ready for the weekend. Yeah. Well, Judy says it was the best. Yeah. But the point I want to make about that is that Dover is such a special place because we continue to build on what we have here in Dover. And you know, it's not a perfect place, but we continue to build a better place. And sports was a big part of what we did. Our church was a big part of what we did. And we are just grateful for what we continue to do. And I'm standing, as I said, on these folks' shoulders here, you know, because I went off and got a good education, had a good career, and now I'm back. The bowling team here, I think you guys won the bowling championship, is that right?
That's right.
Yeah, and so Charlene's in here, Vance and Kobe's mother is in here. Anything you want to say about that, Charlene?
Vance.
Vance Tate, yeah.
Barbara Carter.
And Barbara Carter, okay. Yeah. So a lot of talent, you know, and a lot of us brought up, and I'll add this while I'm at it. When you think about Dover and how Dover progresses over the years and so forth, we had folks come up through. What was the question? As we continue to come along, you know, we
But I must be quiet.
But as we come forward, you know, we continue to progress as a community, and we have athletes and we have entertainers, business people come out of this community that have done very well. Some things that you may not recall. In fact, Robinson Clay was really a big part of the community. A lot of the folks that went to First Baptist Church worked at Robinson Clay. They worked at the Reeves Steel Mill and so forth. And as I said, sports was such a big thing. But just recently, you think about it, Hunter Armstrong, gold medal. And then you got the state championship girls, what, this year?
Yep.
Yeah. So Indian Valley won state championship in football. So, you know, we continue to progress. We have coaches that have come out of First Baptist Church. Micah, Brother Mill's grandson, is a coach down where? Wilmington College? Yeah, Wilmington College. And then, of course, Buddy White is back here. And where is he at? Claymont. So there's a lot of history here and a lot of things for us to be proud of. And I'm very proud of being here. Growing up in Dover, as I said, it was not perfect, but I will, if you guys will allow me to go in here for a few minutes. But 1954 was a very special year for me, growing up in Dover. I was 12 years old, and a neighbor of ours gave me a bicycle. And that was the same year I started mowing lawns. And I used to make a buck for most lawns, but one lady would pay me $1.25 for mowing her lawn. She lived up on like North Worcester, about 12th and 13th Street. And before I leave, she'd always insisted I have a sandwich and a glass of milk. She would do that afterwards, and she'd invite me in, we'd sit there and talk, and she'd always tell me to get as much education as I could. And I listened to her. That same year, I started playing Little League Baseball, and my Little League coach was a guy named Fizz Miller. You ever hear of Fizz Miller? Yeah, well, he had an indelible impression upon my life. He was a fair, even-handed guy. We ended up being Little League champions, undefeated that first year, and he went on as an undefeated coach with the Kiwanis Indians for the next 2 years. And I'm still good friends with his daughters, Jackie and Susie, the twin girls. But those are the kinds of people that influenced me around Dover, and especially First Baptist Church was huge for my growing up. All those elders there. And when I retired from the Air Force, 6 of my high school classmates came down from my retirement to write Pat, and a whole bunch of folks from First Baptist Church was there.
I went to Rex's retirement at the Patterson Field, and they gave us a special room. He and his mother, and they had a bus that would take us from the hotel where we were staying there on the base and drive us to the, what was that, hangar?
The hangar.
Yeah, where they had the ceremony. And that was really a beautiful thing. And anything we wanted, we got. All we had to do was Colonel Ray. That was really something.
Well, thanks, Charlene. So I give a lot of credit to growing up in Dover, Ohio, for the things that I've been blessed with. And like I said, you know, nothing's perfect, but you know, you have to work towards perfection. And it's wonderful when I run into people like at Walmart and so forth, and I wear my Air Force cap and people stop me and say, thank you for your service. And it just really lifts my spirit to hear that, and to know that we have, you know, those kinds of people in our community. That's what makes us wonderful. And it wasn't always easy growing up in Dover, because there were places where we might have felt uncomfortable and didn't go, you know, but that was all right. But it was always good to go to the library. I'm going to give the library there. Well, it was, but it wasn't here at the time when I was a youngster there. We was down the street a little way, just off of Memorial Hall, and they had a nice big, like, vintage home there. And if it was raining, we weren't playing baseball, so we'd go to the library and lay there and look at some of the books, the almanacs from World War II and sporting magazines and so forth. So it was a great place to go, and there's still a great place to go today. Library. The Times Reporter was always good at reporting on events that took place in our community as well. Our parents' 75th wedding anniversary, one of the things they captured really well. They captured our 100th church anniversary really well. I think you were on one of those programs for First Baptist Church 100th anniversary.
Yes.
Sister Charlene and Jackie and Joe Lowry, I think, were on the front page, and they talked about the importance of our church in the community and so forth. So all those things were especially good for us. Then before I forget, Sister Jackie reminded us to mention that we do have a time capsule at First Baptist Church. When we put that addition on, we have a time capsule. Do you want to talk about the time capsule?
We have a time capsule in the basement, and when we put it down there, we had a conversation. I wanted to make it 50 years, but I was overruled, and then they said it would be down there before they opened it 100 years. I said, won't be nobody around to tell me. There won't be nobody to ask y'all what's going on in there. So it's still in the basement. We're probably going to have a meeting on it, whether we're going to open it.
Thank you.
You'll be talking about the library. Well, the first Dover library was in the parking lot down there at the Moravian Church. I remember that because I went to the second grade school there at that library. I have a picture of it, but I just couldn't find it. So I wanted to tell you that I remember the Dover Library sitting in that parking lot there. I also wanted to say, in our community where we lived down there, Broad Street, there was DeNovo's Pizza, Ren's Spaghetti House, Leonard's Steakhouse. And in that neighborhood, we, what I was saying, it was good. We communicated together. the wives, the Italians, the whatever, and my parents and all, they taught each other different dishes. They taught my mom how to make the tomato paste, as they called it that day, with the tomatoes and dressing. My mother taught them also, they loved her pound cakes and so forth, so she taught them how to make them. The reason why I speak so much with Larry DeLawful is because I cleaned their restaurant. I also cleaned, I think Charlene did too, Ren's restaurant. Now, Mr. Ren's was very nice. We couldn't go and eat in their restaurant, but we could go in the front, sit there, and put our orders in, and they would give them to us. Well, that land on the side, you see, if some of you go down there, was a beautiful pond there. And we kids would get a kick out of it because people was, you know, courting and sneak off there kissing, and we're looking. And
There were bushes there also.
bushes, and he had a beautiful pond that had goldfish in it. Well, my mother said to the kids, don't go over there. Don't go over there messing around with that pond. So Mr. Richard one day disappears, and then he comes back wet. And my mother looks at him and says, Richard? Well, Mom, I don't know what he told her. She said, no, you were in that pond. You know. So, and then he had a billboard, beautiful. We used it for our backstop. And when we played ball, we used it for that, you know. And so Mother scolded us for that. And then one time, I don't know which services, when someone lost his pen, so what I'm trying to say, that sailor lost his pen, and my brother found it. So Mr. Wren come over and asked if the kids found this pen, which he did. And the sailor came by that day before he left to go on his own and picked up his pen and thanked my brother for it.
I want to tell you about that bowling team that's on the picture up there. Tim Campbell was our sponsor, and we won the championship that year. And he took us all to dinner, and we used to go over to Ren's on Sundays after church and clean the restaurant. And he would tell, Mr. Wren would tell us, well, you kids just go in the kitchen there and tell them what you want to eat, and they'll fix it for you. And that's what they did. And the day that Rex fell in the pond, we were there cleaning and playing around. So it was really a joyful time at that. Standing there with Mr. Wren, and Tim, he moved to Florida. I think they're living in Florida now. But and the first team that I was on, the bowling team, was Barbara Hamilton. She had a beauty shop in Yurtsville, and she sponsored us. I won a trophy on that team, and then I won a trophy on Tim's team. So, and then after that, Tim's wife, she used to do my hair when she was here, and I really miss her. And so now that they're in Florida, I haven't had a chance to contact her or say anything to her yet. But the team was Darlene Byram, Barbara Carter, she lived in Yurtsville, and we had Carolyn
Jackson.
and Evangeline Pryor and myself. And our name was Barb's Beauties.
All right. Basement class, 1930s. This is a class in the basement of the church while we were operating out of the basement of the church. Of course, we hadn't raised up the auditorium yet. And if you look closely, you can see the cement block in the background there. And the teacher standing up there is Miss Myrtle Watts. She was teaching those folks how to read and write. And as I said, education has always been a focus, there at First Baptist Church, because, we always had Christmas plays, the Easter plays, and those things were always taken very seriously, because our parents expected us to know our parts in Christmas plays and in Easter plays. And in fact, after dinner, about a month before Christmas, we would have to practice our speeches before we got from the dinner table. Because you didn't want to embarrass your parents. They didn't like that. But anyway, in youth play also, we continue to do that to this day. We continue to emphasize getting a good education and so forth. And we expect that to continue on. Here is the Royal School down at Midville. It was called the Royal Settlement School. Would you like to talk about that? That's the Royal Settlement School.
That was the Royal Settlement School. It had, you got taught from the first grade to the 8th grade in a one-room school. It had 8 rows in the school, and you had to remember very carefully, because they would be teaching, she would be teaching the first grade. And then the 8th grade would come up, and it would all be going through you. And you had to decipher your work. And we had graduated from that school, 1 doctor and 3 preachers who went to that school, graduated and went on in their lives. And I remember how we used to have to make fires in the back of the school. We had a big old stove back there. And then you had to be at least in the 5th grade, you start having to make fires for the other kids. I think it was about 20, it was anywhere from 20 to 25 kids in that one room with 1 teacher teaching 8th grade. And when we got a good education. In fact, when I left there, left the 8th grade to go to Midville High School, I had to take an SAT test. And I took the SAT test, and on the first test, I got a 92. And they said that you cheated. So they made me take the test over. I took it again, I got 88. And they said, you still cheated. So then I took it the last time. I said, well, I know what's going on now. So I got a 78, and they say, you passed. So that was just one thing at the school. But we had to get all our supplies from Midville High School. Snow would be that deep, and people would be, we could walk with the supplies. Then some people wasn't as kind as all of them. And they would run us off the road, and we'd be in snow that deep, and they'd be laughing and going their own. But it was all good. It made better people out of it. And I just wanted to let you know.
Carrying on more about Midville, Sister Jackie, who's not with us, her husband, Bob Sherrell, was a basketball star at Midville. And I didn't know this until I was much, much older, and I was working with a gentleman who knew Pastor Sherrell, and he and Bob Demetio, who was a foreman that I worked for, he and Bob Demetio were like the twin towers for Midville. They were both about 6'5" or 6'6", and they were really good basketball players, basketball stars. There were a lot of history like that. And there's another guy that came from Midville, but he didn't go here. Well, he's a white gentleman. What's his name? The guy that played baseball.
Frankie Baumholtz.
Frankie Baumholtz. Yeah, Frankie Baumholtz. Yeah, his dad worked at the Royal. Yeah, he was from that area, and I think he might have played on maybe Tuscarawas County basketball championship team. But he played professional baseball for the Cincinnati Reds. And he and my coach, Fizz Miller, were at Ohio University together, and they played in the what you call the NIT, National Invitational thing up in Madison Square Garden, and I think they lost by 1 point in the championship. That was 1941, year before I was born. So a lot of history, a lot of history come out of this area. Yes.
I just discovered, I knew that they told me my dad was in that picture. He's the fourth one in the first row. Reggie looks just like him. My dad is there, and I did not realize two of his sisters, Doris May and Josephine Hunter, both of them are in the picture as well. And I think they're in, I think it says the third row. Or the second row, the third students. Yeah, third row, the second there. I didn't realize they were in there. I didn't realize my dad was until we had the meeting. And then I noticed with the names that my two aunties are actually there too.
Speaking of schools like this now, there was a predominantly black school there at Midville, which was part of the Royal settlement. The Royal being the Robinson Clay plant. They called it the Royal because at one time it was the biggest sewer pipe plant in the world, and they called it the Royal. That is the Royal settlement. Well, we also had a brickyard out here at Corral, and my sister Catherine was born out there, and basically the first 5 were out there, and then Colby's mother and our oldest brother Charles, they didn't have a predominantly black school out of the settlement out there. It was the smaller type settlement. They went to Worcester Highway. Yeah. They started out and went to Worcester Highway. Yeah. And I remember Colby's mother telling me that they studied by kerosene lamp and so forth. Yeah. And they didn't have indoor plumbing and all that stuff because they had a central water fountain and bathrooms and all that stuff. Anybody?
I wanted to say about Worcester Highway out. We came to Dover, moved to Dover when I was 5 years old. I was going to start school that year. So I would tease my sister and brother and tell them, good, I didn't have to run for them cows and step in there.
Well, Dover initially wanted to keep the races separate also, because there's a good article that I have that talks about the Dover school system. They initially started a school over near where Sandy Sue's is now for black children, and the parents didn't like that, and so half the parents wouldn't send their children to the school. So finally the school superintendent gave in and said, no, everybody's going to go to the same school. And that's how that got sorted out. I think it was 1918 or 1919 that happened. Yeah, I learned that many years after I left Dover too, that they had one time had a black school here in Dover, so, yeah. Okay. This is our Sunday school class here. And as I said, we always kept emphasis on education. Well, I often tell people my first textbook was the Bible, And Sister Jackie was not here, but her father was one of my first Sunday school teachers. I was about 5 years old. And but we had a lot more people going to church at that time, and we had a nice big Sunday school class for children and so forth. So, anybody want to comment on that? Okay, cool. And then we took a mission trip to North Carolina, which is in essence another opportunity for us to learn, so forth. This was to go down and help out what was it after A hurricane? Yeah, after a hurricane, yeah. So First Baptist has played a big role in our community and in other communities as well. All right, folks. More education. Yeah, this is after we got the Unity project completed and the new front of our building done. Well, Sister Charlene is in that picture, her daughter's in there, and Sister Avery's in there also. And then Deacon Anderson and Brother James, is that you?
Yeah.
Yeah. Brother James is in there. Yeah, so they're being educated on how to use technical things like computers. All right, moving on up and beyond. Let me just close by saying this. I want to thank all of you for coming out. There's a lot more stories we could tell, you know, but we could worry you out with stories. But I will say this, and I'm going to go back to Junie Capizella here. His dad was the manager of a guy, a boxer called the Alabama Kid. And I have a picture of his dad and the Alabama Kid that was taken back in the 30s. Yeah, and the Alabama Kid was a good boxer. I think he won a title down in Dayton at what time? Yeah.
They won one in Australia too.
Well, I didn't know about that one. He said he won one in Australia also. So yeah, so there's Dover's always well represented around the world. I know every time in the Air Force and I got a chance to talk about Dover, I did. And you probably heard me say this before, you know, I'd always tell people I was from the Big D. And they would look at me wondering, where is this? And I said, it ain't Denver, it ain't Dallas, and it ain't Detroit. And every time I said, it's Dover, Ohio. And they'd still really be confused, you know. And I said, well, it's near Midville, Strasburg. And then after that, I'd say, well, it's about 25 miles south of the Pro Football Hall of Fame. So they got it after that. But anyway, it's a good way to get them warmed up. Yeah. Get their attention. So, yeah. Hold on a second. Oh, yes, yeah. My sister wanted me to tell about how we celebrated the 4th of July. And in fact, I found a picture last night. It's not in this setting, but I found a picture last night of where we would go out to the Shungbun village every 4th of July. And the churches from the county, the black churches from the county, including the AME Zion Church right across the street from our house, our church in Tin Town, the churches from Denison, Yorksville, Newcomerstown, would all gather out there, and the churches would furnish the fish and sodas and ice cream. And two gentlemen I remember the most, Mr. Dave Favors, he was our uncle, he was married to my mother's sister, and Mr. Danny Woods, they would always fire up that grease or oil and start cooking fish long before parents showed up. And the reason why I say before parents showed up, well, we would start the social event about 10 o'clock. And the city of Dover, and was New Philly involved with the trucks also? No, just the Dover. The city of Dover would take the dump trucks and put chairs in there for us and transport us out to Shungbun before our parents got there. Yeah, and they would pick us up at the church. That first picture you saw at AME Zion Church, that's where they would pick them up. And where did they pick them up in New Philly? Do you remember?
It's a church at Sanctified Church.
Okay, there was a Sanctified Church in New Philly right on 5th Street, I believe. Yeah, where they would pick the children from New Philly and bring them out there. And we'd get started and the parents would show up about noon, and then, you know, somebody would say grace or whatever, and then everybody would start eating.
I would like to say, my son Tom, you know, was the drum major for Dover. And he would make the music, entertain people, because he'd bring the drum home to practice. So going to school, he beat that drum, and all the kids in the neighborhood would be following him. And he would beat it so much and all till his father says, now look, you leave that drum at home in the morning when you go. And one year, Susie, you were what? He and you You know, they had that,
Homecoming.
yes, and I remember that time when he walked up there and he kissed you. And also my husband said, but he really had to put up with But we had wonderful, but we had wonderful times at Dover, at Dover High School, the kids did. We got along mostly with our teachers, but I forget what grade I was in. And we had the art teacher in and we were doing Christmas trees. Well, then after that, the teacher said about writing down something. So instead of me going through all of it trying to find my pad, I brought this paper out that the Christmas tree was on. And I was writing on it. And she said I was drawing Christmas trees, wasn't listening to her, and she failed me. I had to go an extra year to school. Okay, I went to a nursing home one day. She just loved me and welcomed me and wanted me to come back and see her, and I started to tell her, really? I would go and visit her. So we all have to be careful and remind, be careful, because things that you say and how you treat people, that comes back on you sometimes. And I would be just, and then the choir teacher, Alexander, I go visit him because he lived, what was it, 105? And I go visit him and I walk in and he says, yes. You're Catherine Ray, aren't you? Yes. You married Eugene Kelker, didn't you? Yes. I said, but so I had joy with them. And this teacher, I'll forever remember her, and she'd say, well, come back, make sure you come back and visit me. I said, really?
Well, speaking of art, I enjoyed all my time in school also. Made a lot of great friends, and we're still good friends to this day. In fact, when we turn 60, we start celebrating our birthdays annually. We still do it every year. And this year we're going to celebrate our 65th anniversary and our 22nd or 23rd birthday celebrations. But in the first grade, the art class for high school was just above my class in the 6th Street Elementary School, because 6th Street Elementary is right over here, and that's where I went to school. Same location all 12 years.
Yeah.
But they were looking for someone to be a model for one of the art students. And I don't know why, but my teacher, Mrs. Young, picked me to be the one. And every Monday for 6 weeks, I would go up and she made a bust of me out of clay, and then she drew a picture of me and colored it in. And she went to school with Catherine, but Catherine can't remember. She can't remember who it was, and I can't remember who it was either. And I'd love to see her now, you know. But it was a nice time and a good experience for me. So, okay, anybody? Well, we're moving up and moving on and beyond. And you know, Dover's a great place. I'm glad to be back here. I live in the family home that I was born in, and I'm glad to be back here. Anybody? Anybody else?
Well, I was the first black to work for the county auditor. We wrote the books, the address books by hand. And also I was the first black to work at Woolworth's 5 and 10 cent store in town. And Montgomery Wards, when they were out there at the shopping center, I worked in one of their little booths. And this one old lady, she used to come in there and she said I was cheating. Or rang her items. So I said, well, go get the manager. So my girlfriend was in the booth with me. She went and got the manager. He came out there And he rang everything on the case register like I did. And he said, now see, these are the same. She didn't teach you, she did just exactly what she was supposed to do. And this lady was cranky, because she did that to every one of the booth workers that checked her out. She would always accuse them of cheating her. And he said, no, everything is fine. And she looked at me and she said, well, I guess I should apologize, but I just don't trust you people. So my boss told her, he said, from now on, when you come into this store, if you don't want the girls in the booth to check you out, have one of them call me and I'll come out here and check you out. And she was satisfied with that. And also, I was the first black to work down at Great Hall in the office. They had shop workers, but I really had a good time down at Great Hall. And had some really good friends down there. And then when I retired from Great Hall, they had this party for me, and it was really an uplifting thing. So I'm glad to be here.
Yeah.
I'd like to thank everyone for coming out to listen to these stories. We have some good ones. I have some good ones. I won't release them right now. Thank you all for coming out and have a good night.
We'll take a few questions, if anybody's got any questions.
I'm a touch.
Back here.
Mine's not so much a question, but I heard you talk here at an author's event a couple of years ago, and you wrote a book. Mr.
Yes,
Ray.
I did.
Yes. Well, I think you ought to interview all these people and get those stories that we didn't hear. Write another book.
So how many books?
There are 95, they're still here. You can do it. Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you, I'm working on another book, and it's going to be called Coaches Make a Difference, and I'm going to dedicate it to Coach Fizz Miller.
Yeah.
Because he did have a great impression upon me. After I played Little League Baseball for him, I started helping a gentleman named Leonard Dimes, a black gentleman who's sort of like a handyman. And I started helping him clean Coach Miller's office, because he had Miller and Miller Accounting. He and his brother started Miller and Miller Accounting. And the coach says, hey, Rex, what are you doing? I said, well, I'm helping Mr. Dimes. And he said, oh, good. And I could tell he was pleased that I was working, doing some things. And the coach and I remained friends, for over 60 years. Yeah, and his wife and daughters asked me if I would, be the first person to speak at his memorial service, which was an honor to do. And I had the honor of showing he and his family around Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, Christmas of 1996. They were in Dayton visiting their daughter, Wendy, and she called me 2 weeks before Christmas. She said, Dad, I always wanted to see Wright-Pat. I said, not a problem. So we met at the Air Force Museum, and I drove up in my staff car, and Coach was pleased with that. He said, man, I never had a staff car. And so I got in the van with 13 of them, took them around, showed them the base, gave them the tour, the kind of tour that we gave to Senator Glenn, John Glenn, when he would come to town. And then went back by the house and visited with my brother was visiting us for Christmas, my oldest brother, and my family. And Coach Miller and my oldest brother gave us a really good history lesson of Dover, because my older brother is 12 years older than me, so they could reminisce about a lot of things. There was a hand up back here.
Bill.
Yeah.
You don't have to stand up.
I'm not from the area. I'm from Cleveland, but I've lived here a number of years.
Why was it called Tin Town?
Because of Reeves Mill. Reeves Mill was down there. That's where a lot of people live. And most of the people, some of them at our church, worked at Reeves Mill. They come up from the south. The plant owners, wanted workers, and they sent down there and said those that wanted to come, most of them they hired at their mill. See, Tin Town had the blacks and had the Italians and so forth there. I know some of the houses that some of the Italians lived in there and the blacks. And people look at me now and wonder, because the Davis family was out on the boulevard, lived in a house. The Fergusses, who lived across the street from me where I lived down there, lived in that house. Well, it so happened that for some reason they ended up changing house in the same house. And they would say, the one came and they started like a restaurant, and the blacks started something out there. So I'm saying how people, were doing, things. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm going to say this also. I mentioned that I live in the house I was born in. Well, the gentleman who built our house, his great-grandson is here tonight, Scott Hammond. And, and well, your great-grandfather and my dad became good friends. Grandfather was about 68, and my dad, I think he said he was like 20 or 21, and he said Mr. Hammond just kind of took a liking to him. And the summer I came home and started painting our house. After I retired from the Air Force, I removed the mailbox, and behind the mailbox it had the initials MH. And so I got my dad and took him around, and he looked at me and he says, Marion Hammond. He almost started crying. But those are the kinds of stories that lift us all up. We have good times and bad times. And if we hang on to, focus on the good times, we'll just keep rising and go on to a better time. Anybody else? I think you guys did good anymore. We're going to wear you guys out.
How do you celebrate Juneteenth in this community? Did you?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, we celebrated Juneteenth last night over at the fairgrounds. Yeah, and it was a great turnout. And
Yeah.
Mark hosted that for us. So pretty much Mark in the library. Yeah. And then Pastor Rodney Sutton gave us a beautiful dissertation on his life.
Yes.
And it's worth everybody hearing about how he overcame. Great story.
Hey, Rex.
Yeah.
I think Bill could address that question because he conducted most of the activities prior.
Bill, now, you don't know Bill, who's Bill?
Right there.
Bill Walker.
Oh, Bill. Okay.
Well, basically, I think he's asking historically, but really, Juneteenth more recently was just back in the 90s, I would guess. And we started it at the various churches, and we went at Newcomers Town, and then also at Tuscarawas Park. And it's really grown up from there. Like, I was at Canton this past week, and they've expanded it even more. But I think that we really need to get together and
Do something.
put things on a larger scale. I think this is great. This is really great, but we need to, all the stories that you heard, those should be in books so that people can see that and not let that get away. she just suggested a book. I think it's very imperative that each of us writes our own story. Because even though you don't think it's that significant, it's very significant. Because once we're gone, our stories are gone.
Yeah.
And we need to make sure, no matter who we are, we need to make sure that we write down our story, because there's someone who's going to want to know. And we need to be able to have something so that people can actually know our story. So that's it. Recently, it's all our churches and so forth that put things together just like it was in the past, but we really never had a continuous Juneteenth in the north. In the south, there was continuous Juneteenth from 1865, but here it's been more recent.
Before I go on, I want to, and I'm remiss for not doing this, but I want to introduce our pastor, Pastor Rashid Asamad, and his wife Jessica. And Pastor Asamad replaced Reverend Chris Lowry. And Chris Lowry, Lowrys are here tonight. Joy is here, and his sister. And Lisa Lowry is here. And
No.
folks from Mount Olive, and who else is here from local churches? I don't want to overlook anybody because we are a community of churches. You know, we start up predominantly black, but now all of our churches are pretty much integrated. So it's a good thing. There was a question, somebody had your hand up. Sister Shelley.
Your nephew actually had a Juneteenth celebration at our church. Well, actually, did he have two? He had one celebration when we wore these shirts, and then before that, I think maybe 4 years before that, Jerry, we had choirs that came and we celebrated Juneteenth.
Yeah, him and Betty. Yeah.
Yes, he and Betty Mills. So it's, everybody does a little bit of their little portion to try to get us involved, but we have had two at the church specifically.
Sir, you had your hand up back here? Gentleman with the glasses on, who's looking back, yeah.
No, when you asked for churches, he raised his hand.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, if there's no more questions, I mean, I'll be glad to stick around and answer questions.
Before we go, one final tip. Junie got to talk about them barbecue.
Oh, yeah.
You want to talk about the barbecue ribs about you and your brother and the barbecue ribs? Have at it.
Makes me hungry thinking about it.
He told us the story up at the steakhouse up in Strasbourg.
Oh.
I think that's where we were.
Mountain. Yeah, mountain.
Yeah, and I think he had everybody in stitches up there. We didn't realize they were listening to him. So. Yeah.
Well, I lived on Broad Street and Fifth Street. My father had a grocery store there. And when I was a child, anywhere from around 4th to 8th grade, I got into being a delivery boy, so to speak, for my older brothers. And what I was delivering were barbecue rib sandwiches made by Judy down over the hill next to Mr.
Trammell's. Yeah, Trammell's, yeah.
Anyhow, she had a unique way of making her barbecue. Her grill consisted of a wash tub. And in a wash tub, she had charcoal. And over the charcoal, once she got the fire going, she had a window screen.
Yeah, that's right.
And that's where she put the ribs. She had a kettle of this incredible sauce. I mean, it's just, but I don't know anybody in this room that could eat it. The reason you couldn't eat it, it was blazing hot. And it was my brothers loved it. Well, anyhow, they're down there and you watch her cook these ribs. she had like a stick, and at the end of the stick there was a chamois, maybe about 4-inch square.
Yeah.
And the chamois she put in the sauce, and she just slapped those ribs. You could smell that from her miles. But it was incredible. And the sandwich consisted of, I don't know, it's either 4 or 5 bones, 2 slices of Wonder Bread, a little bit of sauce on top, and she wrapped it up in wax paper. And it was worth every bit of the 75 cents. I love it. I wish I could find the recipe. I've been after you and everybody else that did that recipe for the sauce. Haven't found it.
The lady that did it, Judy who?
Judy's, what was Judy's?
Judy.
Judy Hughes.
Judy Hughes.
Yeah,
G.H.
that's my mother's sister-in-law.
Oh, okay.
She was married to our Uncle Darrell Hughes.
At any rate, but,
I never knew her.
you know, listening to the stories tonight, I was a child at that time, probably in the pre-teens, and I knew the Ray family quite well. And wonderful people, respected them. The Lowrys also, we were all in the same neighborhood, played baseball, softball with them, and just absolutely had great times. Had a few fights, but it's great to be here. It brought back a lot of great memories, Rex. I sure appreciate it.
Thank you for sharing. Judy didn't tell the part about when I asked him why he didn't. Well, he said he always got a piece of bread with sauce on it. I said, well, why didn't you take one of the bones? No, you didn't do that to your older brother or sister. Not back in those days, you didn't get away with it. Yeah. And I told him, I said, well, why didn't you take a bite out of it? It would have been worth it, a little jacking up, just to get a bite of it, But anyway. So. Yes.
That barbecue sauce was my aunt's. And I tried to get her to teach me to make that sauce like she did, but she wouldn't tell me the measurements. She would just say all the ingredients. Well, we have those ingredients. And I said, well, Aunt Judy, I said, mine don't taste like yours. And she said, it just has to be your taste. And I said, well, I'm sorry, but I wanted you to give me the measurements, a cup of this, a cup of that. And she said, no, I won't give you that. You just have to taste and taste and taste. And she had the most wonderful taste of barbecue that you could ever have. Nobody else has ever topped it. Yeah.
Well, I don't know about that. Daddy made good barbecue.
Well, remember I told you, there was always, something of concern or some issue that would come up. So I'm going to give Brother James his opportunity here.
Oh.
She said it couldn't be topped. I got a trophy at home. I got a trophy at home. I had a barbecue cook-off. I didn't want to get in it. Everybody kept saying, get in it. You scared. You scared. I said, no. I said, if I get in it, I'm going to win. They said, no. And then after, they said I cheated. There was an announcer from Harry Boomer is what it was. Harry Boomer, Rick Hallcrowder, I forget their name. But anyway, they were the judges.
Marlowe.
Yeah,
Marlowe.
Marlowe was one. And it was the preacher in Yorksville and his wife. They were the judges, but yet still they said, "Gee,
Anybody else? We're gonna shut it down here, but I'll stick around and we'll be around a little bit. You can stay as long as Cheryl lives. Thanks again. Oh, I'm sorry.
Preserved, and please share those with your friends and family, your neighbors. I think it's very important. So thank you, Rex.
Well, thank you. Thank all of you for coming out.